All right, so next time, Isabella, let's try not to put me in right before the lunch, right? And it's always hard to do the presentation while everybody's hungry, right? So let me, I wouldn't call my presentation a presentation. I would say it's more of a discussion, right? I had a similar talk when I was in Chicago, talking about innovation, how to get your ROI high as possible, right? Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit different, right? So let me showcase a real business case. My idea here is that give you something that you can take away right after this talk or this discussion, right? And then you're going to see a lot of different things I talk about. For one, you're going to see a few words in each PPT. You're going to see that. That's, by the way, by design. What does it mean? That means that instead of for you to read the PPT, you're going to concentrate on me. So that will allow us to discuss the important matters, right? The second thing is you're going to see, as I said, all these stage gates, leadership. You talk about innovation, how important? Yeah, it is very, very important. The leadership is important. The cross-functional team expertise, how they align, absolutely important. What I will do is do something that's, we just launched a product, right? So it cannot be more real than that. So what I will tell you is something that we feel like we did it very well, and then some of the stuff that, frankly, we didn't do well at all. And I think that's where the true learning that you're going to get, right? So let me start by introduce myself a little bit. 我的名字叫陈维志。
My name is Chen Weizhi.
CTO at WhiteWave Foods. Now, for those of you who lived in States or in Europe, for that matter, you probably heard about WhiteWave Foods because they have a lot of brands. In fact, all but one brands are number ones in their separate, the categories, right? And the one they're not number one, they're number two. So, in fact, WhiteWave Foods is the fastest growing company for the past few years in the consumer goods companies. So it's not just for food, it's consumer goods. So truly blessed and fortunate to work for a company like that, right? And one thing that we are very excited about is this brand called the Silk, which is #1 brand for plant-based beverages and food, right? So they're #1 in North America, and they're #1 in Europe. Now it's time for us to bring that #1 into the great China. That's what we're doing. So last year, June-ish, I took the whole family back to China and then worked with Mengniu. For those of you who live here in China, you probably heard that we formed a joint venture business. And then the goal of that joint venture business is indeed bring the very healthy, nutritious, plant-based foods into China market. Now, what's our ultimate goals? We want to have a #1 brand in the whole wide world, right? So I'll talk about some of the struggles that we have. As you know, the joint venture is never easy. There are cultural differences. The way we do things is very, very different. How do we really work together to accomplish our common goal? Very difficult. So I'll share some of the struggles or some of the learnings with you guys. Now, let me talk about, as I said, PPT, very few words, right? Now, SHPD, that's not Shanghai Police Department, right? If you're in the US, it's a LAPD, but that's a good way to remember this, called the Strategic Holistic Product Innovation or Product Design. So I'll explain this big term for you with a real example here. Now, when you talk about product design, everybody knows product design, right? You look at Apple computers, you look at iPhones, you look at high-end, all these race cars, things like that. You Italian guys, right? I used to work for an Italian company. Anything Italian, great, awesome, right? You talk to the people in the United States, they die for those things, right? So design is not something new. In fact, it's been with us for a long, long time. However, it is relatively new when you think about product design in food industry. right? Let me give you a couple of examples. In fact, a couple of bad examples that you shouldn't follow, right? Real example, right? So when I was in the States, and I, like many people, working hard, no time. So what you do, you use those microwavable foods, right? You open up the package, you layer those cheeses and hams and sometimes a little bit of vegetables. Dry, but nevertheless, it's vegetables. And then you pop the door open, microwave door open, you shovel this thing in there. Then what happened? Say, how many seconds? You forgot, right? How many seconds that you should push? Then what happened? You pop the door back open, take it out, you look at it. Nowhere can be found the instruction. Guess what? It's hiding on the bottom, right? So what happened is, I've seen this in action. It's hilarious, but it's real. So people start looking at like this, and then boom, all the food items on the floor, right? Now you would think it's a smaller company did this. No, it's actually one of the huge companies that did this, right? So that's one, we call it product design, but it's bad design. Give you another one. Nowadays, nobody have time to cook your own meal. So there's a clear need state or the consumer innovation space, if you can crack that nut, is what we call meal solutions. Right? Some of you guys probably use that kind of a product where you have an outer box, and then you have inside, you can have a pasta, you have a pasta pouches, you know, the sauce or vegetable or seafood, whatever, it's in there, right? So we invite people, our targets, consumer, watch them, right? Watch them how they use the product. It's fascinating when you look at how they actually use this product that we designed a certain way. They open it up, right? Take the content, one pouch of sauce, one pouch of pasta, and so on. And then they throw this outer case away in the trash, right? We all do that. Then what happened is, then they start cooking. Where's the instruction? So here's what I'm saying, discussion instead of presentation. So I'm going to ask questions, right? I need a little interaction here. So what do you think they're going to do? I mean, if you were in that situation, right, you look at all the content, where's that instruction? What do you think? It's actually in the trash, right? It's outer box. So it's amazing when you look at the moms going back to the trash, digging that out, and then look at the instructions. You would think, oh my goodness, whoever designed this product clearly didn't use it. Or the other possibility is that designer actually know this product too much, so you don't actually think this is the wrong way to do it. The better way to do an innovation, obviously, is give it to the consumers and watch them, right? In fact, when I was in the States, I try to hire the consumer insights group, some of the people coming from the pet industry, the dogs, the cats. They can't talk. So imagine if you know what they like to taste, you're really understand the insights, right? So those are the couple of examples I want to give it to you that's bad. Okay, now the good ones, let's stick with this meal solution part. So you have a recipe, calls for half of the sauce, you use it to simmer seafood or meat, whatever, right? You do that, and then the other half you introduce to the, finish up the whole dish. So that is the process that gives you great tasting product. Trouble is, the finance guy comes in saying, no, you got to cut the cost. My margin is not there. So the scientists start formulating the great tasting product, and then they put in a so-called lay-down pouch, right? The pouch, plastic pouch, lay down, very cost-effective, very cost-effective. So what happened is that when you look at a mom again, your recipe calls for half of the sauce. What happened? You open it up, you introduce a half, then what happened to the rest? You can't put it back down there because it will run out, right? So the better design would be a gusseted pouch that stands up. And better yet, simply put one line across so that people know what's a half. Simple design. Again, my point here is that design doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the simpler the better. So those are the examples I want to give it to you and say, hey, product design is so important. It's here, like it or not, and I highly recommend that we pay attention to that and really leverage some of the design stories to give consumer what they want and surprise them in a nice way. Now, having said that, though, that's not today's discussion that I want to talk to you about. Today, I want to ask you to focus on the first two letters. That's a strategic, holistic product design. What does it mean? What's a strategic? I think all of us did a strat plan before, right? Strategic plan. Strategic, by definition, is choices. You got to make choice. And we'll talk about what that means during the real case studies. The other one's a holistic. Now, you guys, during the nice introduction of me, I'm really fortunate. I don't know what else I can describe it. Very lucky, very fortunate to get the opportunity to look at things holistically, right? I'm not quite sure how many of us over here, sitting in the audience, have similar experience that I have. It's truly lucky, right, for lack of words. Because I worked, as I said, in the manufacturing, right, the supply chain part of it, R&D part of it, QA part of it, but I also worked in marketing, sales, and others, right? In fact, I spent most of the time doing so-called innovation, so it's a cross-functional. But that's in a corporate setting, right? Our speakers before me said very well, you know, that's one kind of innovation. It's very, very difficult to do the innovation in a gigantic companies, right? And I had the same share. You know, Alan actually showed some pictures that really, really brought back those good old days that I used to work for Frito-Lay, right? So all the chips and all the, you know, I worked on all of them. Really, really fascinating, beautiful company to work for. But here, still, you know, one thing that's challenging is how do you do the entrepreneurship? You know, some of us would use that word, entrepreneurship. I actually started my own company. I still have it, right? So I'll tell you, it's so different when you run your own company. I remember those days. I scrutinized every line of a P&L with all the assumptions that I have and visit the stores and visit manufacturing because I didn't have the money. I still don't have the money to buy all these equipments and things like that, right? So what you count on is to do the outsourcing, co-packing, things like that. But you need to know every bit of it because that's your money. If you make mistake, you're broke, right? So give you a different meaning of it. So going through that year and a half, almost year and a half, fascinating, beautiful experience. I can't trade that for anything else, right? Now, I wasn't that smart. I'll tell you, if you look at my educational background, I have PhD in the, you know, the food science and things like that, but also went to Northwestern Kellogg School, that, as you guys probably know, marketing #1 in the world. Why do I want, you know, I actually went there for that reason. I want to understand how to translate invention into innovation, make money. At the end, you want to make money, right? So my experience has been, unless you think through the entire line from the insights to the actual manufacturing, before you even do that, let's think about commercial. What's your selling point at that commercial? Because if you don't have that compelling story, what's going to happen? One, you're going to spend a lot of money. Two, you're going to spend a lot of time educating people. Three, maybe what you design versus what you advertising, they're not in sync. I've seen many, many of those examples. So let me dive in and talk about this real case study. As I promised, I'm going to give you something real things. You take it away now, right? And I'm sure that this afternoon we're going to have some time to talk in person if you want to know more about it. So these are the two plant-based products we just launched. So it's, what, 4 months? Something like that. So brand new baby, right? And you think about the thing I was talking about. Everything starts, you hear people say everything starts with an idea. But idea, typically, you got to have some type of insights, right? And so we start with that insight that it's actually started, what, June-ish, something like that. A little bit before that, I guess, before I came. And we found a strange phenomenon, especially in front of the milk powder shelf, right? You go there, what happened? You got a lot of people there paying big dollars or RMB and purchase the imported product, right? We do have a lot of great products here locally, but you don't buy it. And then you even have great product over here, you cannot sustain or justify that high premium. Strange to me. I think it's probably easy for you to understand. Then I realized, okay, well, here's a melamine incident that we all know. So consumers start thinking, oh my goodness, I better buy something that's safe, right? Especially if I give it to my baby. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are doing the marketing. In marketing, you have so-called positioning statement. You always have one line called reason to believe. I challenge that notion. I think starting today, we should change that. We should say reason to switch, right? Have some action to it. And guess what? Fear is a good thing. In fact, fear is a huge motivator for you to switch, right? So we recognize, hey, there's an opportunity for us to introduce some real authentic product that's safe, right? So now how do we do that? How do we possibly do that when we do have this insight? But how do you do that? We really need to have some design strategy, right? You can't possibly tell people, say, here's a drink, it's safe. Who's going to believe you, right? So let me give you another example. I love coffee, right? So if somebody tell me, hey, taste this coffee, tastes great. Yeah, I'm not quite sure I believe that. But if he or she says, oh my goodness, this is so smooth. What's happening in my mind? I'm translating, saying, wow, this must be taste good. So the strategy, design strategy we're trying to get at is something in the middle, something that we can latch on that allow us to convey this safety idea to our consumer. What do you think that thing should be? It's not direct, here's the safe stuff, right? Now, if I tell you directly, you say, I know that, right? So start thinking about it. I pause a little bit, think about it. What that middle ground that you can catch to convey that safety. So it turned out, we said, you know, if we can design a product and advertising that allow people to think, hey, this is the real stuff. You know, Coca-Cola talk about real thing, right? If I can introduce my product into my consumer's mind, which is by definition product positioning, that says this product is real. This product is not fake. So in their mind, they're going to translate that into, oh, it's a safe, right? Makes sense. So how do you do that? How do you actually do that people say it's real? Well, let's take a look at that. The first thing, before people reaching out to your product, what's the first thing they do? They look at it, right? It's simple. They look at it. So the first strategy that we used is to generate a visual that conveys this real idea. So here's what we talk about, visual cue. So if I show this to you, right? I said, this is orange juice. Would you believe me? Chances are you don't, right? The orange is that color, and coming down, the drink become white. Something's wrong here. So then I show you, well, you say, voila, that's probably real, right? So let me ask you the question then. Here's your walnut. Somehow, when you drink the walnut drink, it becomes white. What's going on here, right? So we talk about design strategy. We say we got to generate a walnut drink that's a similar color as its original nut, right? So more or less, the color should be like that. Now, it's probably exaggerated a little bit, but the idea, you get it, right? So color, the visual is so important to convey this idea, hey, this is real, okay? But that's not enough. Nowadays, the consumers, as you know, they're very sophisticated, right? They look at the product, first thing they look at, they turn around, they look at your ingredient statement. before they even look inside specific things, first impression, if you have a lot of long list of ingredients in there, what happened? They say, that's not real. Must, some chemicals in there, right? Now, it's actually good if you're doing something medical, right? Like Alan talked about medical. You claim some drinks that make you, cure cancer. You better have something that people don't understand, right? If you only put a potato in there saying cure cancer, who's going to trust you? But for our purposes, want to have all natural, real stuff, you got to have a short ingredient statement, as short as possible. Very difficult to do. I'll touch that very point a little bit later. Okay? Now, the other thing is, we talk about the short statement. The other thing is no artificial ingredients or additives, right? Now, that's easy to say than done. In fact, one of our young marketing professional asked me that question. He said, why people add artificial stuff in the first place, right? Everybody wanted all natural, nutritious. Why? Well, I said, tell you why. For one, it's pretty cheap, right? You get the margin. You want to make money. And second is that, hey, you can really get concentrated flavor. A lot of people like the concentrated flavor. This, frankly, is a huge challenge for us up against some of the competition's product here in China. Being Chinese, I was born here, and I know that we like strong taste, right? If I give you some natural stuff without adding something, taste is not as appealing. But nevertheless, that's our strategy to make sure people think it's the real stuff, right? So then the other one is premium look. I don't think I need to explain too much here, right? If you look at something that's really high-end, less likely you think it's a fake. Some dirt cheap packaging, you say, something's wrong here. Let me show you a quick picture that I just downloaded from the web, right? If I ask you the question and say, one of the bottles contains artificial stuff, which one are you going to say? I think most of us are going to say, maybe that orange stuff, right? Less likely people are going to say the one on the left, because that's high-end look, like it or not, right? So that's a strategy. Now, suppose we did the color right. Suppose we have very short ingredient line. Suppose we have no artificial ingredients. Suppose to be, we have this beautiful packaging that's high-end. That's all good. You're sending me as a consumer to say, less likely this is not real. Not enough. What's missing next? I think, we just had an earning calls last week. The stock went up like through the roof. Great. Part of it is your actual performance. But the other part, big part, is the expectation you set to the Wall Street, right? Same thing here. Because if you're telling consumers everything's beautiful, this is going to blow your mind, it's real, boom. They taste your product and say, oh my goodness, this is like yuck, artificial tasting. That's bad, right? Again, easy to say that you want to have authentic taste, but it's a burst of flavor, right? Something's missing here. Easy said, then done. So I just conclude segment that I call the strategies. So follow me here, right? Want something safe, so we say generate something real. How do you do that? Let's do the visual color. The drink color got to be similar to the original nut. And then short ingredient line, no artificial ingredients, and then premium look. By the way, taste better be authentic. So how do you actually do it? Never easy, right? So first hurdle that we had is how do we generate a color that's real without adding any artificial ingredients in it? Well, here's what we did. We grind the whole nuts, right? The entire walnut into the drink. You don't add anything else. You just grind it, and then you put it in. Now, the beauty of that, of course, in the skin, you have all these pigments that gave you that color. Second, you guys probably don't know, I think Alan knows better than anybody else, is that in that skin, 99% packed with all these nutrients, right? The phytophenol, things like that. Strong, strong antioxidants. Great stuff. But all my competition is to throw it away. I choose to put it back in there. Right? You sort of puzzle yourself and say, well, how come people don't put it in there? Make every sense. Well, it turned out it's very difficult to do because the skin is a semi-rigid. You know, when you put into your drink, I know all us Chinese, you don't like that sandy, gritty texture or the mouthfeel, right? So literally we had to invent a technology that grinded down to the certain particle size that you can't taste it. But you cannot repeatedly grinding the material because you're going to destroy that, right? The temperature go up and the nutritional value go down and burning, all kinds of stuff. We went through all of those. Nevertheless, we nailed it. So now you have a natural color packed with the nutrients. Now you have that color. Great. What's next? We talk about short ingredient line, right? That's our strategy. If you look at our product, it's short, not short enough. I'll tell you, if I had to do this all over again, I'll knock down 2 more in there. Because especially if you don't claim it from a marketing perspective, why do you put it in there, right? We still make that kind of a mistake. And I've seen that kind of a mistake all over the world. That people just put a lot of stuff, but they don't leverage that. They don't claim it, okay? Now, what happened here? That's not, okay, that's a wrong commercial that we put in there. Nevertheless, let's play that. Can I play that? Or?
Every soap drink is delivered by these lovely squirrels to your home unless they find it too tempting to drink everything up.
Okay, so that was the commercial you're going to see outside, right? That's basically coming from different angle. Frankly, my opinion, this commercial is no good. I'll tell you why, okay? But the one that I put it originally in there, you guys supposed to put it in there, is something like, here's a glass of water coming in with a little pipette coming down here with the orange color, dropped in there, say, is this a real orange drink? And the other pipette coming from the other end looked like a little purple, like a grape juice, right? Is this real? And finally, boom, here's our walnut drink that's with the color that I was talking about, and with the nuts squeeze out those juices back into the juice, right, the drink. Now, very powerful. We got a lot of great feedback from the consumers and say, oh, I got it. Oh, I got it. It's a real color. It's real stuff. And the usage, the way we use that pipette is, I thought our marketing guys did a great job. Because pipette, automatically we think it's chemical, right? In our college or high school, we use that, right? So that's really good. So let's come back here. So I talked about design something holistically, not just the product, not just the ingredient, but the commercials, right? So I show you that one commercial there. The other thing is, it's so easy to say no artificial flavors. But when we did the first time, you take the flavor out, really, really no good. Tastes really bland. So people don't like it, right? Now we say, in the United States, we actually put the flavor in. But those are all natural flavors. But being a Chinese, understand both language, you know what happened during the translation, right? When we say natural flavor versus artificial flavor, it doesn't matter because you call it xiangjing, right? Translation of that probably called the flavor extract or flavor concentrate. In other words, there's a bad implication. That's not real. So we had to take that flavor, even though it's natural flavor, we say, nope. From product design perspective, you cannot put any flavor additives in it, even though it's natural. Very challenging for R&D folks, right? But it's crucial. you know, when you think about designing holistically, because I got to worry about that commercial. I got to worry about how consumer view that. Don't forget, our goal is to say, hey, this is real, right? So you guys, probably a lot of you guys work in R&D for a long time, so you know this probably better than I do. A lot of other ways to do that, to get the flavor out. Most of them probably processing, through processing, right? Here I suddenly thought about a real story. I used to work for a big company, and I thought I knew everything about food science, how to do the formulation with all these artificial stuff. In fact, one time I did this coffee, right? Gave it to my boss and say, wow, that's a great tasting coffee. Tasted, wow, yeah, that's great. And I said, do you know there's absolutely no coffee in it, right? So I think 10 years, 15 years back, that's very popular. It's about food science. It's about, you know, technology that we can generate that kind of a product. You know, in that pipette or in that test tube, it's a white color stuff. You shake it, purple. You know, think about how powerful that's going to be for the kids, right? So those are good old days, right? From science perspective. Then I went to another company. That company is something I learned the most. The owner, Italian guy, came over. Great guy, king of pasta. You know whom I'm talking about. He came over all the way from Parma, sit down with me, says, whatever you learn from that company, don't use it. Don't use it. So I'm like, how? You know, I got to have a product that tastes great and this and that and also make money. And he goes, let me give you a rule of thumb. Don't use artificial anything. I said, how do you measure it? Well, if your grandma cannot pronounce it, don't use it. So that somehow stuck in my mind since then, that anything I feel like my grandma cannot tell, let me not use it, right? So use process to deliver the things that we set out to do. In this case, exactly what we did. When we roasted the nuts, and then that flavor, the burst of flavor came out. In fact, some of you guys that use the GC or chemist in here, you know how complicated that is, right? Multiple peaks and all over the portfolios is so hard to copy. So that's how we generate great tasting product without artificial ingredients in there. So we talk about communication, right? I showed you the commercial. Here's the communication with the consumer. We leverage that no flavor, okay? No flavor. So we said, 喝了太久香精吧，来口真的吧。
Tired of artificial taste, try something real.
All right. So I got the sign. I said, I need to speed up. So let me do that. Okay. So premium image. That's good looking package. But you know what? That silk, that English words plays a huge role here. I give you an example about being Italian. You know that everybody loves Italian. Same thing here. That silk is carrying some weight, credibility. You look at the shelf impression. Awesome, right? In a sea of Chinese letter, here you have, silk coming out and sending out that very symbolic of something that's real, something premium. Okay, aseptic tasting, I was talking about tasting, right? Most of the product that's out there is what we call retorted process. You cook that thing to death, right? So then what happened is you have to put the artificial flavors back in to get the flavor back in there, right? So our process, few seconds, high temperature, boom. You kill all the microbial stuff, but the flavor remains. And you have that experience when you cook your green vegetables, right? You put the lid on, after a little while, it's all dull color, tastes no good. That's the old process. We use this new technology. So let's quickly look at it. We did this all in our shop. We think the wonderful things about our product, what the consumer's feedback. And as I said, this is a holistic design, so this is part of marketing. So if you like that artificial taste, don't try me. They tried it, and more than 15,000 people tried it. 96% of them saying, wow, this is a great product. And then about 65% of those tasters specifically say, this tastes great. Now that's unaided. In other words, we didn't ask them whether this is a good taste or not. They volunteered. likely this is real. So these are specific examples that the comments that we got. I don't want to go into the details here, but it's a great product, right? Okay, improvement area. Let me quickly wrap up with the 3 things that I think is so important for you. As I said, this is a good looking package, but one fundamental mistake that we made, those 2 are so similar, right? It's 2 different flavors. One is almond, one is walnut, but they're so similar. And for those of you working in manufacturing, you know that's detrimental, right? The QA is a nightmare. So that's one thing I want you to watch. Don't do that. And then the other thing is that we, as I said earlier, we spent a lot of money isolating the lines so that there's absolutely 0 possibility for cross-contamination. As you know, the allergen's big deal, right? So you don't want somebody to take your almond and get sick because cross-contaminated by other nuts. But we don't talk about it. That's another thing, right? And then, finally, I want to share with you one thing is that when we grinded all these fine particles, remember, it's all great until later on we found out that in a QA lab, when we measured the protein content, it choked up the filter. So it's fluctuation, right? The protein, the readings of fluctuation. Now, when you have fluctuation there, what happened to your batch size? Keep on fluctuating. So now the product tastes and all these margin all messed up, right? So we solved that problem, but I want to leave that to you to say, let's, next time when you do innovation, think about Shanghai Police Department, right? Think about that strategic, holistic product design. That's my talk. Thank you so much.